Thank you for joining us this evening. I have the great pleasure of being here with Katlyn Rugo, and tonight we're going to talk about the Bret Hart Aquatic Center. Man, it's been almost 10 years. I mean, it's because you have I mean, it's a nice facility. I mean, it's a nice facility, and it's. Let's start off a little bit on your background. Now, you were saying that so you. Bret Hart graduate, went through. Tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah, so I grew up here in Angels Camp. My dad lives off of Dogtown Road. I went to Bret Hart High School. So I lived here my whole life. Moved away after high school for a little bit, and then the job sort of brought us back. And having kids and family in the area really, it was a drawback to hometown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice. Never seen you have two kids?
I do, yeah. I have a 4-year-old boy, and my daughter will be turning 9 on Saturday. So
very nice. So are they permanently? Are they a part of the? They spend most of their time in the water? Is it? In
they love it. Yeah, totally.
Well, that helps.
They're a little fish for sure. Yeah.
Now, tell us a little about the center. I mean, I know I can't believe it's been 10 years, but that's quite a. It's quite a facility you have and you run. So tell us a little about it.
It's beautiful. I mean, it's an 11-lane pool with a 0-entry beach area. I mean, it's pretty amazing for a small town to have something like that, for sure. But
you have really nice locker room facilities, everything, all the rest of that stuff there.
Totally. I mean, things that you don't see in most big city pools either. It's really nice. Yeah.
I know sometimes people drive, they're from buying a house or coming to a second home or something in the area, and they think that the Bret Hart campus almost looks like a JC campus or something. I mean, it's a for those of you it's a nice facility.
It really is. Yeah. I know I have people that, especially this summer with the pandemic and being at their second homes more often, I have people that normally swim in the Bay Area have been doing their lap swimming at the pool this summer. And that everybody's just amazed that this exists in Angels Camp.
There's one little interesting thing is my son was a skier. Ski raced up at Bear Valley, and one of his kids on the ski team had Olympic aspirations for swimming. And interestingly enough, as the parents were they've said later that if the center had opened up a year or two earlier, he probably would have done done more training here. And,
totally.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an interesting, now in a non-COVID year, what are some of the programs and stuff? What are some of the normal programs that you run through?
So we normally run water aerobics classes, several different kinds of those, lap swimming times for people. We have swim lessons and a little swim team. We have the Bret Hart Aquatic Masters program that swims and practices there. And then obviously the high school water polo and swim teams,
Right. And that's one thing is people don't realize that outside of school hours, that becomes almost a community asset, right?
Yeah, I mean, we operate around the high school swimming and water polo seasons, but other than that, it's kind of a public facility, totally, and especially during the summer.
Yeah. Now to our friend COVID. How has this year been like? What have you...
This year, I mean, normally we open for our full summer program in June.
Okay.
That was delayed until July 1st this year, so that was the first big change. We've done all of our programs by reservation only, so a lot of phone calls and scheduling and things like that.
Which has been tough as far as getting that down to a pattern.
It has, but it went a lot smoother than I expected it to go. Yeah, it's gone really well. We do the whole temperature checks when people come in, contact tracing. I could tell anyone who's been there in the last, since we opened at any point in the day, we have the records for all of that. So luckily we haven't needed to use that for anything. But we could tell who was with who at any point of the day.
So that's the detail. So really, that's as detailed as it. Wow.
So, and so instead of offering swim lessons this year, we did some learn to swim classes for parents, and they were able to bring their kids and have a lifeguard sort of instruct from a distance.
Okay.
help the parent learn how to teach their kids to swim instead of having a lifeguard or a swim lesson instructor in the water with the kids. We had the parents in the water with them, and then the instructor teaching the lesson from.
Has there been any COVID-specific protocols? I know you have your distancing, but the chlorination probably takes care of the
chlorination, everything like that is all the same, really, as far as that goes. I mean, we are just sanitizing everything constantly. We blocked off a number of the bathrooms in our locker room just to allow for like some more distancing there.
Got it.
The showers, we're only allowing the outdoor showers that we have, but we have those. So those are just some of the other COVID stuff that we've gone through.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Learn to Swim classes, that went fairly well, and parents were pretty happy with that, giving them like the confidence to teach their own kids how to swim.
As we segue back into whatever the post-COVID normal is what plans, what future plans? Do you have any interesting new stuff planned for the center?
So one thing that this sort of like gave me the opportunity to do was to test out several like new exercise classes and really figure out what the community wants as far as that goes, and some more family-oriented like classes and where parents are able to exercise and then their kids are busy doing something at the same time.
Got it.
So I'm hoping to offer more things like that, more opportunities for parents to get their workouts in at the same time their kids are staying busy and active. Yeah.
What is the what's the state of swimming now? I mean, water sports right now. I mean, how is it seems like a lot of things kind of have their ebb and flow over how's the state of swimming now?
Swimming, we were set up to do a really amazing swim team season this past, and then March we shut everything down. So there were several kids that I was really excited to see what they would have done this year. But unfortunately they never got that chance. So that was a pretty big bummer for them, especially the senior kids. I had a really solid group of senior kids that would have done really well. And then let's see, our water polo program last season actually really grew. It almost tripled in numbers, especially for the boys team. And they did well. They have a great new coach that started last year, and I think that there's a really awesome opportunity in future for the water polo program there. Yeah.
On that note, let's say for kids who are growing up that have a interest in aquatics, is it as far as scholarship path and stuff, is it one, how does the sport stack up against some of the others as far as being able to get into
there's some amazing opportunities for kids. Yeah, definitely. Especially in swimming. Colleges come, I speak to the college coaches frequently. Even the kids the group of seniors that I had this past year that didn't get a chance to swim for their final season, the coaches really went out of their way, especially with all the COVID precautions and everything they've had to do, but really to work with those kids and help them figure out what to do and sort of navigate this new path that they're going to have to take. But I think that there's some great opportunities for them.
So if a kid's picking a sport, so to speak, picking a lane,
picking a lane,
that's not a bad lane to be in.
Not at all.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and especially with the COVID stuff and really individual sports are probably a good
interesting.
good choice now, just because our swimming lanes in the pool are all 6 feet apart, so we can still safely get those conditioning and workouts done that way.
Yeah. So. The state of competitive swimming in the U.S. generally, how is the U.S. doing? Is it pretty good?
And typically we see a big influx in swimming after the Summer Olympics.
Olympic year,
on an Olympic year. That's we'll have to wait and see what happens with that.
We'll see how that happens post-Tokyo.
So I was actually sort of expecting this big. Usually there's typically a surge of kids that go out for swimming or water polo after that Summer Olympics. So.
Yeah. Are there any kids that you know of that have passed through the program that are swimming collegiately now? Are there any ones that you?
So this will be, I'm just going on my third
Sure.
year of coaching there. And so I do have several kids that are going in to hopefully be swimming at some point this year. And then several that are mostly at the junior college level.
Good.
Yeah.
But they're still pursuing it
Mhm.
after
Definitely.
post-grad. Very
Yeah.
nice. Very nice.
And they'll come back and swim laps and stuff at the pool whenever they're visiting home. So
Show off how fast they
Yeah,
are. And,
totally.
Yeah, all the rest of that stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah. On the little bit on one of the things we like to see is kids who've been local products,
Mhm.
go off, get their college, and then come back. Come back. I know you had family here, but what would you say to because one of the things that I think is tough for a small community. What's the pitch for a small community like Brett? I mean, for your family, what if somebody is looking at, because with all the COVID stuff and everything else, I know this is off the subject,
Yeah.
but I think it's germane. Because one thing that small communities need is young families. Because if we can, because we know after the economic collapse in 2008 and 2009, the amount of young families that did an exodus was huge. And it's nice to see we're starting to get some of them back. But
Yeah.
how have you found it being back? I mean, because you lived away for a while.
I did,
yeah.
and we did really love where we lived,
Sure.
but there's something to be said about, being in your hometown.
Right.
Like, my
Right.
husband and I both went to Bret Hart. His family's here, my family's here. It's nice to have grandparents for the kids to go
Yeah.
see, and that's really the main draw, and other than all the wonderful outdoor areas that we have around
A
here.
question I wanted to ask
Uh-huh.
is if you look at a lot of your larger metropolitan markets, to where you have, I guess it'll be blunt on it, you'll have your affluent zip codes, your less than affluent zip codes. I still think there's a great benefit for having a school that all the kids go to.
Yes.
Because I think that in some ways, because a lot of the younger generations are having a tough time being able to see their future and stuff. And I think, if you're in one of those depressed zip codes, you don't see any sunlight. In a larger metropolitan market. And I just think tell us about, the Bret Hart experience. I think it's nice because you still have, yes, obviously there's socioeconomic differences in the student body, but
yeah, I think having the kids all go to the same high school, it makes them really feel like they all have sort of the same opportunity.
Yeah, that's what I was. That's
when moving on.
Do you think? Or if young families looking to, do you think that's one of the selling pitches?
I definitely think that the high school is a big draw. I hear that from, especially some of the new families that I talked to moving here, and then our pool facility does help that too. It really does.
Well, right. Because one of the things, we had one family that moved here from Bay Area and brought a couple of kids here. And one interesting thing they were saying is they loved our local schools because they said that the local schools here were better than the private schools they were sending their kids to there.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a nice thing to hear.
It is, definitely.
And it's I think it is.
Yeah. It definitely is. And right now I'm sure it's hard for every school dealing with all this COVID stuff.
Right.
But the great thing that I've had experience with my daughter is that the flexibility that I have with her school. And they gave the opportunity to either do the virtual learning or doing a more homeschool approach, which is what we're doing, just because I can't commit to having her sitting down at the same time every day.
Right.
As a working parent, and my husband works, and so giving that opportunity to be flexible, I think you wouldn't really get that in a bigger school. So that part has been really nice.
Because that's one nice thing about a smaller.
Yeah, they're willing to work with you.
Okay.
And the principal, everyone, and so.
Yeah, and they know, family. They're like, oh yeah, don't worry,
Yeah.
So
that has been really nice. I can't imagine what it would be like to be in a bigger school where you didn't know the principal and you're having to deal with all of this stuff and how to educate your kid from home and not have as much support as I feel like we're getting in the smaller area right now.
Yeah.
So.
Are you seeing? I know the school year hasn't, I mean, how's the school year going so far? What's the...
So we sort of started this week, and then the power was out, and then it was kind of delayed. So today was technically like day one of school. And it went well.
It went well?
Yeah.
Okay. So is it mostly on campus?
No, we're all distant, all remote,
okay.
all distance learning. We're doing more of like a homeschool version, but they offered that, you know, so we work out of workbooks and read, and I don't know. It's going well so far.
It is what it is for right now.
It is what it is for now.
So I know it's just, I mean, nobody knows the real path, but is the plan, what's the plan for on-campus? Is there a plan for on-campus
I think
yet?
they're trying to move towards on-campus after the first trimester, at least for the elementary schools, and then Bret Harte, I think, is trying to do that, move towards that after the first quarter, do like partial days online, and then moving into more fully on campus into the third quarter.
Okay.
So, and we hope that that's how it goes. I'm sure everybody is ready to get back to that.
Now, you know, you talked about a little bit, like the tentative schedule for high school sports then is when's it pick up? You're looking tentative?
Yeah, so they're moving, the tentative plan now from the CIF has been to move the fall sports season to December. So starting like football, water polo, cross country, volleyball, all of those fall sports that we're used to seeing will be starting in December, which will be interesting in itself, just water polo, and it's really cold outside, and I mean football in the rain, every single game probably. It's going to just be really interesting, but I think
you know, I think people will be fine with it, because it was interesting. If you look at, if there's any you don't know if there is, but if there's going to be a historical component, if you go back and look at the 1918 flu pandemic, it was followed by the Roaring '20s, and it was fascinating to me. I think people can only stay cooped up and stuff for so long, and then and I think people will, even as politically as angst as people are going to want to be happy. You know, there's going to, and I think there's going to be at some point, I think people will just really take off and have some fun with it. So question on your plans is this for the Bret? Do you anticipate doing any other teaching or stuff, or besides the aquatic stuff, or what are some? Do you want to stay in?
Aquatics has been my thing as long, going on 17 years of being a lifeguard. So.
A question then. Let's say a kid, as a sport and a career, if somebody wants to make a career, you made a career of it. So say somebody loves the aquatic, what's the...
A recreation management would be like a good path to follow, like into college, and really there aren't many of these positions available.
There's not that many?
Not that many. Bret Harte High School is one of the only school districts in the state of California that has an specific aquatics director.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, most of them work for like city departments as like a recreation manager or a pool manager, but
so it's a facilities manager. Okay. Yeah. Got it.
And so
even
that's
like for some of your big water polo programs and stuff,
those are either coach run usually, and then most schools hand the pool off to like a separate, the city for the summer, let's say, and then the city manages the program at the high school for the summertime.
Right.
So Bret Harte, and I think that's mainly because Angels Camp doesn't have like a recreation department.
So they had to create a department to keep
created this to make the facility happen and make all these opportunities for families around us. Yeah.
I know we talked about it a little bit. Tell us a little bit about the facility. You know, it's 10 years old, but now I know it's been, how many $1 million facility was it? It was a a couple $1 million facility. Yeah. So you're saying the facility that Bret Harte has, how does it compare to other high school facilities out there?
It's pretty amazing.
It is.
Yeah, and so like Sonora High School has built a pool.
They just built a new one. Okay.
But they actually use the plans from the Bret Harte Aquatic Center. So if you went there, it's the same pool at Sonora because they really liked it. It's a model facility, really.
Right.
So yeah.
So as far, so it compares well with not only most of the other. How does it compare to the facilities out there right now when you travel? Is it?
It's definitely like top
Good.
for sure.
Even
and like
10
I
years
was
later,
saying,
it's
yeah,
still...
even 10 years later, like I was saying, we have some pretty serious swimmers that have come up from the Bay Area working remotely now, and they all comment on how like surprised they are that this exists in such a small area.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So what's the normal schedule for the facility then? How does that? What's
So
the normal
normally
schedule?
we're open February through October.
Okay.
February, March, April, May is usually high school swim season, and we do some of the public lap swimming and water aerobics classes during that time. And then June, July, August, we run our summer program. So the youth like rec swim team, we do like a splash ball water polo program for younger kids. Normally, you know, we didn't, some of those things didn't happen this year. And then we also have our classes and our lap swimming hours and all that. And then the fall, so like August, September, October, that's usually water polo. And then again, we go back to sort of our spring schedule with our lap swimming and our classes then.
Got it.
Yeah.
A question, just a little bit on the sport of swimming is, you know, a lot of sports, I mean, like you hear the stories on how many laps that Phelps had to swim. If say a kid really wants to, you know, they want to pick swimming as their sport, what are they looking at as far as the time? I mean, because isn't there like a baseline that you need to do this to have the wheels to be?
I mean,
what are they looking at?
It's a couple hours a day, probably in the pool.
Okay.
Yeah. So we offered this summer just a very small, like some, not necessarily a practice, but an exercise class for swimming for the youth kids.
Got it.
And where they were each in their own lane, and some of the kids are in there for an hour and a half. The littlest kids, we do 45 minutes and kind of go up from there. So we start at like age 5. We had a couple 5-year-olds that were in for 45 minutes, and then we go up from there and spread them all out this year.
Now, a question, I know when my son was skiing, I mean, skiing, there's probably some parallels to skiing, but I mean, it was one of those things, do kids get marked early, like in a lot of other sports? Because I mean,
you can tell, yeah.
You can tell, okay.
You feel like you can tell a kid that's moving across the pool much faster than another kid, even if they're not quite, they don't have the form down, they have a feel for the water, and you can really see that.
So is it similar to where if they're not, you can see, I mean, by the time they get to high school, it's too late, right? Is it not too late, but do you see it?
Not necessarily, just because as long as they always have some swimming, they're involved a little bit in the swimming. I think there's sort of a movement in sports right now to make them more all-around athletes.
And then specialize later?
And then specialize later on.
Because it was getting insane as far as these kids are tracked at 6 years old for gymnastics.
I wouldn't necessarily, pick the sport for your kid at 6 and now they're competitive soccer year-round all the time. I think the seasonal sports that we have in our area is actually a really good thing. I've heard both sides, people complaining about how there's not as many competitive leagues for sports here.
Okay.
As opposed to in the Bay Area. But it's almost better because every kid gets to try everything new.
They get to be more well-rounded.
They get to be more well-rounded. And I think even college people that are looking for college athletes are looking for the more well-rounded kids now. And I've heard that in the last couple of years. Which
kind of makes sense. Which kind of goes back to, I thought it's nice that we have a school that is still, all the kids go to. You would even think that would have some benefits even sports-wise, a little bit. And it's not so huge. There's room on every sport for every kid that wants to try it out. Yeah.
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 And so I think that you wouldn't get that at a bigger school.
So, if you're talking to parents, you're talking to what's the pitch on swimming? What's the pitch?
What's the pitch? Well, get to be in the water all the time.
Yeah.
What little girl doesn't want to be a mermaid? That's what my daughter wants to. That's her whole thing. She wants to play mermaids all day long.
Got it.
At that age, and then the guys really, they want to look good in a Speedo.
Sure.
So.
Got it. And that takes a couple hours a day in the water just to keep that all, okay.
So that's kind of the boys want to get a tan and look like Michael Phelps, so
there you
what
go.
better way to do it than in the water?
I know with the master's classes then, how is it working as a lifelong sport? Because I mean, as far as impact stuff, I mean, it seems like almost one of the ideal lifelong sports,
I mean, the
right?
low impact on your joints and all of that. Yeah, totally. It's awesome for all sorts of things. Movement, flexibility, you're just getting your aerobic, your cardio, your, resistance from the water.
Sure.
It's an all around great workout, especially we also get a lot of triathletes that swim in our pool.
Yeah. Okay.
And so they think it's great. It's much better than riding their bike and running in the hot weather all summer.
So you do have some triathletes that train there. Okay.
Yeah.
Are some of the Masters athletes pretty competitive? Do you see a lot of the...
I do. They get competitive for sure. Yeah. But, all in good fun.
Is the Masters swimming... the area, there's a pretty active Masters here in Sonora and everything?
Between here and Sonora, we don't have as many athletes here, but the ones that we do have are very committed. I mean, they're there every day at 6 o'clock in the morning, ready to go.
They're ready to go.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for spending some time with us. Appreciate it. Appreciate spending the time with us, and I think it's a nice story that you've come back home.
Yeah.
We like to see that. And it's one of the sad things is you see kids that they move away and they feel like they can't come back home, or they, and I think it's nice to see, and that's where we a little bit of the pitch on other young families and stuff.
Totally. It's a good place to come back to. I mean, my husband, he works for CAL FIRE, so there's always a job.
Oh, so where's he at right now?
He's in San Bernardino right now on the El Dorado Fire,
Has he been gone most of the summer then?
Most of the summer, and hasn't been home in almost a month now.
Wow.
So that's hard for the kids.
That's tough for,
Yeah, we get a nice winter together.
Yeah. Oh, tell him thanks for what he does, and it's
course.
with this one. I mean, with some of the fire behaviors and stuff, that's got to be some.
Yeah, this has been a rough summer for sure for the fires. Yeah.
Yeah, but
totally.
It's a good time to hit the pool after that.
Hit the pool afterwards, and up in Bear Valley all winter.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, and thanks for joining us tonight. We appreciate it, and we'll see you again next episode.